Hello, today I'm here with Jennifer Cross from Fascinating Womanhood Classes, and we're going to talk about what happens when women leave feminism, how that affects them, what they lose and what they gain. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks for having me again, Noah.
My pleasure. So, Jennifer, most women today, even if they don't consider themselves to be feminists, they are influenced by the persuasive feminist atmosphere that is in the schools, in universities, in the workplace, and in all of social media and the regular media as well. And that tends to affect behaviors. And when women start to realize that those behaviors are actually feminist behaviors, and they want to adopt, instead of those feminist behaviors, they start to change over to being feminine. They will change as people, but they also change how they interact with the world. And that has repercussions, positive and negative. What would you like to tell me about what you've noticed about your clients and maybe even your personal story of how that has changed you and what you've lost and what you've gained?
Great question. Wow. First of all, let's talk about what you can expect to notice within yourself and then how the world will respond to you. So what normally happens is in the later 30s, a woman comes to realize that feminism has lied to her, that she can't have it all. And so many of my students come to me 35 and up, wanting to get married and have children, but that has passed, or it's a very, very short window now between 35 and 40 to find the right guy, date him, court him, become engaged, get married, get pregnant, have the baby before 40.
Yeah.
That's just really a lot of pressure. In the meantime, they're working, 16-hour days, some of them, Monday through Friday. And so there's no evenings, there's no weekends. So anyway, they come to me, they want this class, they're letting it go. And so they have to mourn the loss of the year. So there's this mourning period. Honestly, it's this realization of believing the lie and wishing you had listened to your little girl self who just wanted to be the wife and mommy and homemaker first anyway. And it's not about being educated and having a career. You could have that too. It's just later in life for women. If you want to be a wife, a mommy, a homemaker, you have to do that between 20 and 40. You do.
Yeah.
And it's just biologically, that's when you have to do it.
Yeah, and if we say, well, that's unfair. Well, life is unfair. Men die younger than women. I mean, life is unfair. It's just the way that it is. And a lot of the reason we die younger is all of the cellular damage we accumulate trying to make sure that our wife can stay home to look after
The
kids
stress.
20 to 40 years old.
Which somehow, we thought was going to be fun and everything, and it's fun, I guess, if you are a true career woman, you don't want to get married, you don't want children, good for you. Go do great things in the world, get your corner office, make a lot of money. But I know women who've done that, and they're going to bed at night as 45 and 50-year-old women alone, and they hate it. They've got nothing to show for it, but maybe a house and some 401k. They don't have a loving man in their arms every night. They don't have children to take care of them or to enjoy, grandchildren in their older years. They may have other extended family, nieces and nephews, and that's fantastic if you've had the time to build relationship with other people. But so first what happens is this: be prepared for mourning the loss of this life that you wanted that will be very difficult now to have. Okay, it's not impossible. I got remarried when I was 39. So I didn't have children because we had already had kids. He had 2 from his first. I had 3 from my first marriage. So once you get through that, okay, life isn't the way I thought it was going to be. It's like, all right, what do? You hold the key to your own happiness. That's why that's there. It reminds me every day. I made choices when I was younger. There are repercussions to those choices. There were good and bad ones. Okay, can't go back. You move forward. If you're reading Fascinating Womanhood, the vintage edition, you'll learn one of the first things you need to do is forgive yourself and forgive people around you who you're holding and harboring resentments to, because there's no femininity if you're bitter and resentful. Okay, so, and it's, I don't know if you're even...
That's one of the archetypes of the unfeminine women, is the harpy who is bitter, or the old crone who's all bitter about things and didn't have the life she wanted. Yeah, that's one of
And
the
then
great parts.
what you end up doing is subconsciously sabotaging all the other young women who you may work
Mhm.
with, and hating them, and all this, instead of just, you know what, I'm going to grow my hair longer, I'm going to dress more feminine, I'm going to totally do something different. And I teach women who come to me, you're going to step into this role and it's going to feel like putting on a different suit. And it's going to be the most rewarding thing you've ever done. And you're going to be the happiest you've ever been. But in the beginning, it's going to feel like you're going through puberty all over again. Because it is that awkward, but you will love it, and you're going to be glowing. And within a week of just letting go of your, well, dealing with the forgiving others, forgiving yourself, grieving the past life you thought you're going to have, that's going to be different now. Doesn't mean you can't have kids. Doesn't mean any of that. You may marry a man who has wonderful children, and you get to be a stepmom, and I get to be a stepmom. That filled a huge hole in my life. So anyway, once you do that, and when and if you can get there, which it takes coaching, being in a class, talking to other women, and getting help to deal with your garbage, with your baggage, with the reasons you self-sabotage, and you're willing to say, I own the key to my own happiness. I'm not going to make excuses anymore. You start dressing more feminine. It starts with appearance, because if you act like this woman that you want to be, eventually you become her. So I started living for me as a feminine woman in the workplace, as a feminine woman, the queen of my home, the domestic goddess. It didn't matter that at the time I was working. I just let it go. I let go a lot. The pain, the resentment, the fear. I allowed myself to be more vulnerable. I dressed more feminine. I got pushback from all the women in my life. Why don't you wear jeans anymore? Why are you so dressed up? I found myself saying, why do you care?
Or even worse, why aren't you happy about it? Why aren't you happy that I'm
Yeah.
happy? You know? And I think what it was is they're looking at that and they're realizing that now they don't have any excuse for not being feminine. They can't say,
Yeah.
well, I'm past 35, and so I'm not going to look like I did when I was 25. And
I did this, in my 40s, and was working, and have 5 kids, and was divorced. I mean, I had all the excuses in the book to be more masculine, to be, resentful, bitter, and ugly if I wanted to be. But here I would walk into places in my most feminine self, happy. A part of the role of a woman is bring joy into the world, please. We need it. Men need your happiness, your joy, your feminine grace.
Mhm.
Everybody needs it. You need it. Allow it to come out now, and enjoy it. And so I think too, it was really a turnoff for a lot of the people I've lost. Be prepared to lose your best friends. They won't be able to handle the fact that even though they see you may not have the most perfect marriage, you're making the best of it. And he's responding to you. You're getting flowers again. He's doing more around the house than he's ever done before. And she's thinking, why isn't my husband doing that? She doesn't want to let go of her feminist ideology.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so.
And when people can compare, and they see comparative actions, that helps really to bring into the light both sets of actions.
Yes.
The contrast. That's why masculinity contrasts with femininity. I really like how you mentioned it's like going through a second puberty, and there is actually hormones involved. Women, when they are highly competitive, when they're in a masculine mental space too often, they actually produce more testosterone. They have less estrogen. And then later you mentioned how they're glowing. Well, estrogen is what makes women's skin glow, what
Mm-hmm.
makes them look radiant.
Yep.
And once they start acting more feminine, their health will improve because their hormone balance will come into the correct levels, and that will make them look better. They'll feel better. They'll have softer skin. They'll feel more youthful. And it's surprising the physical changes that just come out of a change of mentality and attitude.
Oh yeah, every thought we have creates your future. So yeah, I just mentioned some of the things to expect to happen that are going to be difficult. Losing your friends is probably the worst one, even your closest friends, but you'll gain a whole bunch of other ones that actually will support your new way of thinking, your true authentic self as a feminine woman. And who cares? Your husband will love you in a way he's never loved you before, or you'll attract for the first time the really good quality men to you, and you'll enjoy your feminine dependence instead of loathe it. You'll enjoy his masculinity, and you'll actually become more successful in life rather than less successful. So when I started to do this, even though I had every excuse in the book not to, everything, my whole entire life changed, just changed.
Yeah,
Completely.
it's not just a matter, and I've had a few women say this, and they say, "Well, you're just changing a few superficial things, just some makeup hair and clothes, and how does that change me as a person?" Well, the reality is those things are the reflection of the internal work you've done, but then they also affect you internally, and it's a virtuous cycle. You think more feminine, then you act more feminine, which makes you think more feminine because you get this response back from people that says what you're doing, oh, this is very pleasing, this is very good, and you get the joy of the new way that you're looking. Well, you'll enjoy looking like that, and you get this nice positive feedback loop, and it builds on itself.
Absolutely. And I would even add to that feminine clothing, wearing longer skirts or dresses, better garments in general, longer hair, even if you have short hair, it doesn't matter. As we explained your appearance is more feminine, your shoes are more feminine, you walk more in a more feminine way. You maybe won't swing your arms as much. You're more conscious of your how you speak, your tone of your voice, how do you use your eyes, your facial expressions. And so when you're doing that, that's another thing that it just makes you feel more feminine. And like, that's why I think start with the clothes, and yes, that's superficial, but the clothing will make you walk more different. Even if you don't feel it inside, you can't help but walk more feminine in different shoes and in clothing that maybe I can't think of anything better than a long skirt with like flowing around me. I'm sorry, winter, it doesn't matter. As a woman, that is just the most fun thing.
And that response that people give to that as well. We often think of ourselves as we're super individualist. Western mind is a more individualist mind, but the reality is we still are part of a greater organism of society, and we interact with other people, and that dramatically affects how we view ourselves as well. Mm-hmm. And even though some people will say, "Oh, I don't care what other people think," we all care. We all care what somebody thinks. And if we don't, that's even worse because it means no one loves us. But we care what other people think. And when people we care about react more positively to us, we feel happier about that. Yeah. And I think for a lot of women, becoming more feminine is really about becoming truly happy.
Mm-hmm. Happiness is if you read the book Fascinating Womanhood, or you take a class, you'll learn about the ideal woman from a man's point of view, which is one of the first talks we ever had, Noah, you and I, is embracing that the ideal woman from a man's point of view. One of the major things on the angelic side is that deep inner happiness and inner serenity that over on the human side of it develops into this radiant health and happiness. And without that, you can't have any of it anyway. You can't be the domestic goddess, which is organized, and the queen of your home. You won't have the energy to understand men, let alone understand anybody else. So you'll be bitter and resentful of everything he does, and not understanding why he doesn't respond to you as if he was a woman.
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't he see the garbage is full? Like, we've talked about that. And then
why doesn't he care that our curtains don't match our carpet? Like, why does he care that the curtains don't match the couch and that the decorations aren't? He doesn't. Men don't care.
No.
It's interesting. A lot of my clients too talk about the need for that inner serenity to be able to surrender the things they can't control.
Yes.
And there are things in the world that you can't control. And as a woman, those things might be a little different than the things that a man can't control. And that recognition that you can't control everything, and that you're just going to have to be okay with the things, you're going to have to work with what you've got.
Yep.
If you are
resourceful,
if you are older, if you're 35, you'll have to work with the fact you're 35. If you start this path when you're 20, you're going to work with that. You're going to work with something different. And it's important to be able to work with what you've got and not try to be in a place that you can't be in yet, you know, and
That is
with
such
the
a
world
great
that you're
point.
in.
That's such a great point. As a 25-year-old woman, so full of insecurities, even though, you know, you had the great body, or I can talk for me, great body, great hair, great everything, right? Beautiful. I didn't have the security, the wisdom that I have now as a 52-year-old woman, right?
Yeah.
So I wish I could have the mind that I had now and the confidence that I had in that 25-year-old body. But you can. I think I do now. I don't. But if you can embrace that. And you know what? I don't have to worry about it. I have a man who loves me because I worked at it over the last 15 years to get that man. And that's why when you're 50 or 60, it's not that you can't attract a man and get married. I see it happen in my church, actually, older, because their spouses have died or whatever. I'm not talking about that. But you don't have to worry so much about all of the superficial stuff when you have a man who loves you.
Well,
already.
And you're beautiful in his eyes. And to some extent, we are what others perceive us as. And if your husband perceives you in a, you know, and it's not just the physical beauty, it's the inner beauty that he sees as well. That kind of lovingness, that knowing that you have someone that will be there for the rest of your life. You know, you guys are going to be together for a long, long time. And that gives you a comfort. And, you know, a lot of times people will think, well, you know, I wish I was 25 again. And then if you say, what was your life like at 25? They're like, yeah, actually, I was pretty, no, I wish I was me, but then back at 25, but you can't do that. You have to be where you are and make the best of it.
Right. Yep.
And that's, I think, a lot with the Fascinating Womanhood is a lot of it is talking about, you know, there is a lot of flexibility in how it's applied, the concepts of Fascinating Womanhood. And they can be applied to a young woman. They can be applied to a middle-aged woman. They can be applied to an older woman as well. And I think even if you were 60 years old, this would help your marriage.
Oh,
we have
women. Yeah, it's just about womanhood, which is why Timeless, the updated, the totally new book, Fascinating Womanhood for the Timeless Woman, is really the book about that. So I do classes for 10 to 14-year-olds, 18 and up, single women, married women of all ages. We're thinking of doing some classes really around the empty nest, because that's a whole different transition for couples.
I know people when either empty nest or when they retired, their marriage was okay because they had a routine. And then when they retired, they were together a lot more. And those little things that irritated them suddenly became big things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that can be done to save those marriages, because as grandparents, you have a huge effect on your grandkids and, you know, and on your children still. So you want those marriages to be happy as a good example to the next generations. Well,
I hope I answered your question. And
certainly, yes. No, it's I think it's wonderful to see. And I think that something that people don't realize when they become more feminine, women don't realize as they become more feminine until they do it, is that they are not going to miss the things they had to give up.
No.
They're going to actually afterwards, they're going to question why they chased those things so hard when they could have been happy following a very natural path all along.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of, you know, I have a friend who's starting a nonprofit to help women who have been affected by feminism. And a lot of these women, they have led, you know, they've embraced the sexual revolution, I guess you could call it. They've embraced free sex, and they've lived lives of basically wild hedonism. Now they're in their 30s and they're realizing they were lied to. This was told to them as the path to be successful. And we'll often underestimate, you're not a foolish woman, you're a very smart woman. And yet some of the feminist ideas were able to implant themselves in you and trick you. And if it can do that to you, it does that to so many different women. And it's not a thing of, well, she just should have known better.
But they're
not reality.
No, and also it's not even a choice. In high school, we're doing these tests, about what career you should go on. And I kept looking, wife, mommy, homemaker. I'm not kidding. I was like, I just love taking care of house. I'm great at cleaning. I love being with kids. I can't wait to be a wife. Where's that check box? Why don't I get that? So it's like, okay, I guess I'm wrong to want that. So, I did choose something that was great. There are lots of careers that are perfect for women. Education is one of them. I love health. Nursing is great. A great job for women nowadays. Lots of flexibility, great pay. So it's not about that. It's just, why not? If you want, your deepest desire is to be married, have a family, have children, then it's not about not getting the career. You need to be educated, smart woman to manage a household and raise children. And then guess what? After 18, they're gone. And you can't be one of those women who's got nothing because the kids are gone.
Yeah.
That is a huge turnoff, by the way, to your husband.
Well, this is why I mentioned as the empty nest, or when one retires, then there ends up being sometimes marital problems because.
Oh, yeah. A lot of divorces when kids leave for college.
Yeah.
So devastating. Almost more devastating is that than a divorce when a kid is 2 or 3 and doesn't know.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine, he said that women have a need for a certain cognitive load that can be satisfied by roughly 3 to 5 children, or if some of the children are moving away, she needs to find something else to fill that, or she becomes anxious. And when she becomes anxious, we see a lot of the feminist movement is promoted by women who either don't have any kids, don't have enough kids, the kids moved away from home. And now they're anxious because they have nothing to do, and they start mothering everybody and everything and being basically busybodies in other people's affairs.
Oh yeah, the busybody.
Yeah, and that happens because they don't have enough. They don't have enough to do. And one thing that women now can do is, especially women that have raised children and had a very successful marriage and all of this, they can pass that wisdom on to the next generation.
Yeah, it's your role as an older woman of society to teach the younger women. It just is. And if you're not, that's why becoming a fascinating womanhood teacher, if that interests you at all, I happen to teach all of the women who want to be teachers. That's one of my jobs at Fascinating Womanhood. But even if you don't, in whatever capacity, whatever your life is, it should be about teaching younger women how to be great wives, mothers, and homemakers.
Yes, and I think a lot of, and saving them from the lies of feminism.
Yeah, that is my mission in life right now.
Absolutely. And, the more women, we mentioned busybodies. Busybodies are people who tell you what to do when you don't need their help and don't want to hear about it. But there are many young women looking for mentors. They're looking for good advice. Their own parents, for one reason or another, aren't providing the advice they need. And I see this, some women become my clients who were not getting the correct advice from their parents. And sometimes there are a lot of women, though, who just never find help. They don't have a mentor. And having a mentor in life makes a huge difference. Yeah,
that whole concept of mentorship, that we need to bring that back. And we are, like, the class for 10 to 14-year-old girls that I do, it's this really charm and etiquette of the 21st century. And a young girl is more receptive to learning these things from me than her mom or dad. Yeah. And so that is just going to be, I'm so excited. It's so fun to teach these girls. It really is. And they're just dying to hear this. They are so excited to hear this.
Well, you're telling them that all of their natural impulses and instincts are correct.
Yes.
That their desire to have babies is normal. Their desire to be married is normal. Their feeling of stress and anxiety about, I'm going to have to go out and work like crazy, but I also want to have kids, and how am I going to do this?
Oh, Noah, that was the worst. And so many women sabotage that by accidentally getting pregnant. Marry the wrong guy real fast so you don't have to work, and then get pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're desperate to follow their natural path, so desperate that they'll sabotage themselves while trying to follow their natural path. And the more that we can do to help these women, we often talk about the role of men and women in society as far as guiding society itself. And there will tend to be either the extreme of complete equalitarianism that, well, there's sometimes the extreme, nobody should be guiding anybody, everybody's just figuring it out for themselves. which is unrealistic. You cannot expect a young person to figure all these things out without any help.
Mm-hmm.
Even in your early 20s, we lack the wisdom and experience. Without guidance from older people, we can't do it. Some people will say, okay, the sexual market should be completely run by the women. They get to make all the decisions. The problem with that is that women are much more they're much more easygoing, much more easier to connect.
We're nice.
Yes,
and we're so vulnerable, and we're so we just can't see. We see charm, and we just fall for it when this guy is a rat, really a bad guy. And that's why we need dads and brothers and people around us to say, he may be charming and he's handsome, but he will not provide. He's bad news.
Well, and even I remember my great grandmother talking about this, that there would be the older women in the community. So you'd go and ask the older women, what's the reputation of this boy who likes my daughter? Right. And the older women they were the keepers of the community's history. And they would say, well, that guy, his family is great. And so is he. And his dad has never had any problems, and his uncles don't have any problems. And their whole family is honorable and upstanding members of society. And I think that they'd make a great match. Or no, he's an alcoholic, and his dad's constantly cheating on his mother. And, some of that culture is going to be passed on to him. So maybe. Yeah.
And a lot nowadays is like people don't take the time. Your daughter's dating someone, and you're like, meet the parents once before they get married.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Get to know these people, and because they're going to be part of your daughter's family forever.
A lot of people put more effort into buying a used car than they do into choosing a spouse.
It's so true.
And a lot of people feel they have no say in who their child chooses as a spouse.
Yes, right.
And this is a massive problem.
Yeah. Right.
Your children want your opinion. Well, provided you have a good relationship with them. My goal as a father is to have such a good relationship with my son that if I was to tell him, do not marry that woman, she's bad news, he would go, I think my dad knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he's talking about, and he cares about me, so I'm going to listen to his advice. And it doesn't matter how he feels about her. He's going to take my opinion into consideration. In exchange for that, I want to make sure that he is often around great women, both women who are older, are at my age as a parent, and younger girls who are potentially eligible spouses for him in the future, that his standards are high. Because the women he knows are great, he's not going to settle for a poor quality woman. And I think for fathers to say, make sure that there's good quality men around, that you have good quality peers, so that your daughter doesn't see the only version of masculinity as you. She sees that it can be in other men as well. There's different types of masculinity. And so that they probably have sons. So she'll have these potential mates around from a young age. And this is the best things we can do. We often think about our future. We put a lot of effort into planning our retirements, and most people, they put thousands of hours into saving for retirement, into preparing their home to be their ultimate retirement getaway, and very little into preparing their family for what happens after they're gone.
Yeah. Great point.
It's selfish, and it is
it's
not sustainable. It's collapsing Western culture.
It is.
That our ancestors, especially in the upper class, they used to send their kids for part of their childhood. They'd go and spend some months with another family, and they would exchange children. And the reason was because the children needed to see other good examples. They needed to have a godparent who would be not just there in case the parents passed away, but they were there to guide them as well, to be a second father or a second mother.
We need to do that so much more.
Yeah, we need to redevelop these connections of community, and we need to be more stable for our children. That might mean that we have to give up moving every 2 years, like some people do, to a new town, a new city. We might have to give up that kind of a lifestyle in order to give our children stability, that they can have the same people in their life over their whole childhood.
Or how about the idea that no, I'm not going to let, whoever go live with aunt whoever, because I have to have total control over this child. It is a hard thing to allow your kids to go live in a different situation for a while.
No, and it's very important, and it also means that we have to have people we trust in our lives. So we need to think about who we have in our lives. You know, a lot of the children that their parents were not protecting them enough. When I speak to them about who their parents are friends with, they're often friends with people who are not really suitable friends. They are people who are quite deficient in the characteristics that you'd want to have as examples for your children. Your friends will be your children's example. If you have great friends that you can trust, if you could say, yeah, I could trust my friend to take care of my kid if I died. If you can't view your friend that way, maybe you shouldn't be friends with that person.
Yeah, great point.
You know, it's really important. And the same with our children. From a young age, we can't let them have unhealthy friendships, because it's going to make them more vulnerable to propaganda and lies like feminism and other things. And it's going to make it more difficult for them to choose the natural path for them. So I think this has been a wonderful conversation. I think it's important that people understand that leaving feminism is both a sacrifice. You're going to give up some of your old ways, but you're going to gain a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, you'll be so much happier. It's even hard for me now because I left it so long. I never was a feminist, but when I left trying to live that way, I never turned back. You won't. You'll never turn back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Noah. This was great. We have a few other topics to build up that came from this topic to obviously circle back to.
Yeah, and I think next time you'll interview me.
Yes.
And I think that will be a wonderful change. And I've been told that it works out better when I get interviewed. So.
Hey, I either way is fine with me, but I have so many questions for you. So I'm looking forward to that next week.
Yep. Sounds good. Next week. Thank you.
Awesome.
It's been wonderful speaking with you, Jennifer. And if you want to contact Jennifer, all of her contacts will be below. If you want to contact me, it's smb4k.com. You can see that also in the comments. There'll be a link. And the real magic happens when you get coaching. So both Jennifer and I coach people. And if you want help to make your relationship healthier, to improve yourself, and to have the life that you really want, just talk to us. We will help you with that process.
And I'm sure, I know I do free session just to get to know me. And so there's always that opportunity. I don't know, do you offer a free 30-minute consult? No. Yeah, I'm still doing that. I like it. I like to do that. So you, please, that's on my website, and just, let's chat about whatever you need to talk about, really.
The thing is, a single coaching session is life-changing. It will change your trajectory in your life when you have a conversation with someone who is an expert at helping people.
Excellent.
Thank you for your time today, Jenny.
Thank you, Noah. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.